This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey Heine, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness. It's episode 10 of the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, and you are going to love my guest today. It is Dr. Vivian Chen, who is a UK-trained medical doctor with 15 years of clinical experience. She is a board-certified doctor in the UK in both internal medicine and family practice, and her world turned upside down when her daughter was hospitalized soon after being born with symptoms no doctor could figure out. Through doing her own research, she was able to help her daughter recover. She also realized that many years of chronic fatigue, acne, and brain fog that she had was due to environmental toxicity. This opened the world of root causes she had never considered before as a conventional medical doctor. When she moved to San Francisco, she decided to get relicensed as an MD in the US, but instead to coach clients back to health by identifying root causes and implementing lifestyle solutions. She is also on a mission to help people reduce their toxin load because she believes environmental toxins to be one important root cause of many chronic health conditions. I know that I believe the same. And when it comes to environmental toxins, we need to dig deep and understand them a little bit more. And that is what we get into today. We also get into Vivian's health journey, along with her daughter's health journey with her allergies, and also the hidden toxins that are in pesticides and how that could potentially cause allergies. We get into other environmental toxins such as children's plastic toys and in our food. And we also talk about heavy metals. This is something that a lot of people don't know a lot about, and how heavy metals can really be a root cause for so many health issues. She also talks about her decision to transition to a whole food, plant-centric way of living. And also we touch a little bit on genes and MTHFR genes. So if you are interested in how to decrease your environmental toxin exposure and really find the root cause of your issues, or if you have family members or friends that are having issues and they're just not getting answers from regular, everyday medical doctors, maybe it is time to hear from this wonderful integrative doctor, Dr. Vivian Chen. So I hope you love this episode as much as I do. Let me know what you think of it. And if you love it, please leave us a 5-star review. All right, here goes. Dr. Vivian Chen, I am so thrilled to have you on the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And I cannot wait for our guests to hear all of your insights on health, environmental toxins, allergies, heavy metals, and all the things. But before we get in to all of that, I would love to know from you, my friend, how did you get into integrative health, and why did you get out of allopathic medicine?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Stacey, for having me on the show. It's a true honor to be here, to be speaking to your audience. I love the work you're doing on Instagram, sharing all your knowledge. So thank you for having me. So it's a really long story, and I'll try to keep it short. And I think for most doctors who have come from conventional background, to get into the integrative space, there's usually a personal story, because without that, you're kind of in that model and you believe the paradigm that you were trained in, right? So with me, it's several layers of personal story. So if I look back on my history, I know that I'd been suffering with many years of fatigue, brain fog. I had acne, I had anxiety, and I went to my own doctors and were just told everything was fine because my labs came back normal. And so they just told me that, oh, you're just stressed out, you're busy. And I actually believed them. I just kind of carried on and just drank like 5 cups of coffee a day and thought that was absolutely fine and normal. And then things really came to a head when I had my daughter. So when she was about 4 weeks old, she started to struggle with feeding. I was breastfeeding her at the time, but she would come on to the breast, feed for a minute or so, and then come off crying, arching her back. And with that clinical history, typically we diagnose these babies with reflux. So she got that diagnosis of reflux and was put on medications. After medications, none of which worked. And eventually things got so bad that she just completely stopped feeding because she would just cry. And she got so dehydrated, she had to be hospitalized and have a NG tube, which is a tube that goes through the nose down into your stomach. So she had to be fed through that tube just to keep her alive. And I think that was the hardest hitting thing that just turned my whole world upside down. And as a mom, as a doctor who wasn't able to help her own child, even though, you know, in the UK, I'm board certified in both internal medicine, family practice, I've practiced for so many years, I couldn't help my own child. So that really made me question, have I missed anything in my training? You know, have I really been able to truly help my patients all these years if I can't even help my own child? So eventually, I figured out that she had a rare form of allergy called cow's milk protein allergy. So she didn't have the typical anaphylactic reaction to cow's milk protein. You know, some people might expect things like wheezing, lip swelling. She didn't have any of that. What she had was damage to her gut lining. So the cow's milk protein was getting through, because I was eating dairy at the time, it was getting through my breast milk into her, and it was causing inflammation in her food pipe, the gullet, esophagus. So every time she fed, it caused her intense pain, which made her not feed. And you know what, the thing that really stuck with me was that her pediatrician said at one point said that she had behavior issues. She believed that she didn't feed because she had behavioral issues and she had to have some sort of training. And that was really kind of the point. I said, okay, this is enough. Like, I have to now take things into my own hands. So through the research, I found out that she had this cow's milk protein allergy. And when we switched her milk, everything got better. And then from that point onwards, I thought, hang on a minute, what about me? Like, what about my symptoms? Maybe there is a cause for all my symptoms that I didn't realize. And of course, through my reading, I realized that it was environmental toxins that were at the root cause of my symptoms. And I actually think that, you know, I probably passed on some of these toxins through to her when I was pregnant with her, and that may have led to an increased predisposition to this allergy. So, yeah, very complicated, convoluted story. And it took me many, many years to figure out. It wasn't like a light bulb that lit overnight. But I'm very happy that I'm here because now I can share my knowledge with people who might need this help.
Oh, gosh. And it's so oftentimes, you know, our stories are what bring us to our purpose. And now you're here educating people about root cause issues and, you know, to peel back the layers of the onion and find really what's going on.
Yes.
At, you know, the cellular level, starting on, you know, what we're putting in and on our body and how all of that really impacts our health so much. So,
yes.
So you got into integrative medicine When? At what point? Was it right after that? Did you just decide
Yeah,
to?
so I think it was through little steps. So, we went to her allergist and I asked the question, well, how come she's got this allergy? Both me and my husband, we don't have allergies. And I was told, oh, it's genetic. And I thought, okay, well, that kind of doesn't make sense because I just told you that both myself and my husband and I don't have allergies. So where does the genetic piece come in exactly? And then they told me there was nothing I could do to help her outgrow her allergies. And I'm, of course, not saying everyone can outgrow their allergies. There is definitely a genetic component to this, but the rate at which allergies have exploded in the rate of disease is as far outpaces the rate at which our genes can change. So there is something other than genes that's driving this allergy epidemic we're seeing. In fact, it's driving chronic disease epidemics across the board. So I started to read more into well, what could be causing allergies, right? And I read my own medical textbooks, and then I went to PubMed. This is the online collection of medical literature that's published. And then I found pieces of information on how environmental toxins could be linked to allergies. And then I read more and more into how these toxins can affect our immune system, our mitochondria, our enzymes, and it actually all made sense from a scientific, mechanistic point of view. And so, of course, at that time, this was 10 years ago, nobody was talking about that. And I was met with a lot of resistance. So I had to do a lot of this work by myself, just by, taking out, reducing our exposure to toxins at that time, changing our diet. And over time, she outgrew her allergies. And I think that was the piece that really solidified my belief in what I have read, because, as someone who was trained in the conventional model, it takes a lot for me to steer away from that area, right? So, I truly 100% believed everything that I was trained in. And in fact, I still think there is I still very much love the conventional medical model. I think it has a place, and it gave me a lot of great foundations in understanding how the human body works. But then I added the aspect of, well, what about lifestyle? Well, what about environmental toxins? What about mindset? I added all of those aspects in. And I think when that happened, that's really where I was truly able to help people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, okay, so that was with your daughter, and that was a major life shift for you professionally and personally. And you mentioned some issues that you had with yourself. So tell me a little bit about your health journey and how, of course, that led you to, the way that you're practicing with your patients now today.
Sure. So I remember at medical school very acutely having an onset of insomnia come on, which I never could figure out why. And I put it down to, medical finals and things like that. It was in kind of the last year of my medical school. And it's only in retrospect that I realized that what happened before that was that I had my amalgams were broken, so they had to be repaired. And so, of course, my dentist drilled out my amalgams without any protective gear. We know that mercury is vaporized heavily when they do something like that, amalgam replacements. So I had insomnia kind of come on very suddenly then. And then I just basically had this indolent onset of fatigue that set in through the years. It just got worse and worse. It wasn't acute to the point where I was just I have to go to the doctor. It's just oh, I feel, I don't feel like anyone should be this tired. Should I be really pulling up on the side of the road after work just to have a little nap so I don't crash my car? So little things like that just came in slowly. And then I had a severe adult acne. I had to have 2 rounds of Roaccutane. And even then, that didn't really help because every time they took me off Roaccutane, the acne came back. gut issues. So I was bloated a lot. Of course, my diet had a lot to do with it. I wasn't eating healthy. I don't eat like how I eat now because I didn't understand the importance of diet. So I went through all those symptoms, and then, at some points things will get worse. So I would go to the doctor and then, have my labs checked, and everything always came back normal. And it wasn't until I kind of read the piece that linked mercury with allergies that I started to really look into mercury. And I thought, wow, it can cause fatigue because it affects your mitochondria. It can affect, it's an endocrine disruptor. It can mimic estrogen. It can affect our hormones. It can affect my gut health. Gosh, I wonder if it's mercury, that toxicity, that's causing all of this. And I don't think it was just mercury. I think it's like the whole bucket list of, the things that, I was dousing myself in perfume like you do, and, using raspberry flavored shower gel and hairspray, all that. Right. So I think when I slowly took those things away, and then I worked on supporting my body in detoxification, then I started to notice an improvement in my symptoms. And it's quite incredible. Like I don't have any issues sleeping now, where I used to just literally have 2-3 hours a night, and then I'd have to take sleeping tablets. My skin's cleared up. I still get occasional breakout here and there, but nothing that I need prescription medications for. So yeah, that's my journey.
Oh, wow. You've made a huge shift. So, okay. So kind of starting to put it together, you said that for your daughter, just removing the cow's milk helped her, right? That was the solution for her. Now, can you tell me what are the major contributors of food allergies for the general population that you see?
That's a really good question. And I wish I could give you a definitive answer. There's a lot of research going on around this topic right now because of the epidemic that we're seeing, so many children affected now. There's kind of emerging evidence that there's a link between the microbiome and allergies, particularly food allergies, but also respiratory allergies, even seasonal allergies that many people might be suffering with right now. And that makes sense because, the gut is where our immune system kind of goes through boot camp to be trained so that it can recognize what's a friend, what's a foe, right? And if there's something that goes wrong in the gut, where that boot camp is training the immune system now to recognize food or pollen as foe, it's going to start attacking those things incorrectly. So I think the gut microbiome definitely is an important piece of the equation. And so linked to that is environmental toxins, because the gut microbiome and the gut lining can be damaged through environmental toxins where we might be encountering through our foods, like pesticides. EPA has been shown to affect the gut microbiome as well. So in your water, in your everyday products as well, because when you inhale these exposures, it is getting into your gut as well, and it's affecting your respiratory microbiome. So gut health is important. I think inflammation is at the root of allergies, right? So that is actually how our body attacks an offender that's invaded, right, and get rid of it. So if we can, a lot of people are walking around with a high level of inflammation because of lifestyle factors. And so they're already at that point where things can really trigger the immune system into an allergic reaction. And then you add in gut health, and you add in lack of sleep, you add in stress. All of these things come together to tip that immune system more towards like what we call a Th2. So the immune system has Th1, Th2, those are the two main arms. There's other arms as well. And the Th2 predominance mode is the allergy mode. So the immune system needs to be in a balance. So Th1, Th2 need to be balanced out. If you're Th1 dominant, you're more likely to then experience autoimmunity. If you're Th2 dominant, you're more likely to experience allergies. So when the immune system's out of balance, then you get this predisposition. And there's so many things. And I think that's why I like the integrative medicine approach, is that it's not just one thing, right? It's not just environmental toxins, not just your diet, it's not just sleep. It's all of those things. So when you look at the body as a whole and health from that angle, you can really get to the root cause. And when you make shifts, then those changes lead to lasting results, and you don't get this yo-yo effect.
Hey friend, before we get too far into this episode, I want to be sure you know about how the environment plays a role on your overall health. For over a decade, I've been learning so much about the lack of health regulation in the personal care and food industries, and that's actually one of the reasons why I started this show. You deserve to know how to protect you and your family from unwanted body burden, and I share further information about how to make better choices and vote with your dollar in our private Facebook community called The Urban Pharmacy. On that note, I want to let you know about one of the easiest ways that we've switched to safer, and that's through my favorite clean beauty brand called Beauty Counter. Your skin is your largest organ, and what you put on it every day matters a lot. And with a low carbon footprint, cruelty-free formulations, and high-performing results, I haven't found a better beauty brand than Beauty Counter in over 5 years of working with this mission-driven brand. To learn more and shop clean, head to mybetterbeauty.com. So you mentioned, pesticides. Do you think that those are a hidden toxin that people should be very aware of as potentially a root cause to specifically like food allergies and, respiratory as well? Yeah.
I think it is one factor for sure. And we know the UCSF here in the Bay Area published a white paper on pesticides, highlighting the importance of pesticide exposure in childhood development. It can affect childhood development at so many different stages. And I think one of the things that can impact is our immune system, our gut health, because, what is pesticide? Is there to kill the pests, right? That can affect our crops. And it does that by damaging this pathway called the shikimate pathway, which as humans, we don't have that pathway. Only microorganisms and bacteria have that pathway. So it kind of, it was initially, I believe, trademarked as a antibiotic, and it works by killing off organisms by shutting down that shikimate pathway. And at the time they thought, well, it's safe for humans, right? Because we don't have that pathway. So it's fine for humans to eat this stuff because we don't have the pathway. But we're forgetting that we're more bacteria than human, right? There's trillions of bacteria in our gut, and those pesticides can damage these bacteria by shutting down the shikimate pathway. And in turn, that is, it's emerging that could be causing a chronic disease epidemic.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And yeah, they might not directly impact our pathways, but they are directly impacting the gut microbiome, all of the bugs that are within us.
Yeah. And when you step back and you look at health, like we have to consider health as a symbiotic relationship between us and our planet, our soil. And I love that you are into gardening, right? Because I think that when you consider that relationship, because, people consider health as this isolated thing like human health, but actually we can't be healthy until like our planet is healthy, because what's happening is that we're putting these tons and tons of chemicals into our environment. They're not going anywhere. They're ending back in us because they get into our water, they get into our soil. And when we damage our soil, these pesticides are killing off bacteria, microorganisms in the soil, which is actually really important in delivering nutrients to the plant, right? So when you don't have these micronutrients, the plants are not feeding us. So then we can't get healthy. So it's all like a circle. It's a circle of life. So what we need to, I think we need to step back when we consider health.
For sure. It is a huge bird's eye picture. I agree
Yes.
100% on that. Okay, so aside from pesticides, where are other potential toxins in our food? We're still on food. Where are they hiding?
I think the biggest area is going to be processed food, right? Because if you consider the additives, how does that work? Again, it kind of almost acts like a pesticide because it prevents bacteria, microorganisms from breaking down the food, right? So that's how it extends shelf life. So if it's doing that, then what's that doing to your microbiome when you're eating it? So we're talking about preservatives that helps food stay fresh, but there's also additives that have been added for flavor that could also be damaging our microbiome. So things like artificial sweeteners, for example, have been shown to be associated with insulin resistance, possibly by altering our gut microbiome. So I feel like if you can reduce your intake of processed food, that's going to massively reduce your exposures. And also there's going to be packaging, right? So when we buy food and it's like wrapped in plastic, and especially if the food is in contact with plastic, right? We know that plastic can carry endocrine disruptors like phthalate, and these molecules are not just they move, so they can leach from the plastic into our food. So that's another source. Canned lining can contain BPA, and BPA can in turn be an endocrine disruptor and affect our gut microbiome. And we got to think about what your food eats as well, right? I mean, I'm plant-based, and I think you're plant-based as well. So I think we are in a way protected because animal products are the highest sources of these environmental toxins, because they're fed grains that have been sprayed with pesticides, and over the course of their lifetime, these pesticides and toxins, they may be injected with hormones or fed antibiotics to fatten them up or fight infections. These all accumulate in their body, especially in the fatty tissue, over time. It's a process called bioaccumulation. And so if you do eat animal products, I think it's something to consider, make sure you go for the highest quality you can. But even then, pasture-raised animals, they're still exposed to environmental toxins just by nature of being alive, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that. Oh, and seafood is another. And I think I still have to watch that documentary, Seaspiracy.
I just saw it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I can't wait to watch it. But yeah, I mean, our ocean is so polluted now, right? And so it's what our food eats is what's the fish drinking? It's polluted water. So that's why fish can be a source of heavy metals like mercury, but not only that, could be dioxin, PCB. These are very potent endocrine disruptors that have been associated with conditions like polycystic ovary disease, polycystic ovary syndrome, that can then lead to fertility issues. So yeah, food is a big source.
For sure it is. And so speaking of plastics, well, you were talking about fish and in Seaspiracy, and from what we know, plastics are a huge environmental toxin, right? And the fish, like plastic just breaks down into microplastics, and they're finding it in fish, and again, like that, builds up within their fatty tissue. And then some people are consuming that, and then the bioaccumulation happens to us too, right? It's not just the animals that we're potentially consuming. We are an animal as well. So that's happening to our bodies. And
totally,
eventually our bodies will just say no more. And okay, back to the plastics. How important do you think it is that we start switching from plastic to like glass and stainless steel for our food, preparation and storage. You already mentioned how phthalates really do bounce into, whatever they're packaging. Like, how important do you think that is?
Very important. So, if you're considering the category of food, the first step I would say would be to, try and buy organic where you can. And the next step I usually suggest to look at how your food is contained, right? And then it's not just food, it's water. Water matters almost more. Like, what are you drinking out of? How are you storing your water? Like, a lot of kids still use plastic water bottles. And some parents think, oh, it's okay because it says BPA free. Well, BPA free still allows companies to use alternatives like BPF, BPS, which have been shown to be just as endocrine disrupting as BPA. So, really trying to, make that switch. I know kids tend to break glass bottles very easily. So, there's some with like silicone outside layers, or stainless steel can be great for kids, right? And I don't think they're that much more expensive now. So just making that switch. And the thing with plastic is that it breaks down more with time. So if you've got an old water bottle, it's 2 years, you might start to see like the color fading, or like, you start to see white parts appearing. That's the plastic breaking down. That's the point where it's probably maybe releasing even more endocrine disruptors into your water. Plastic water bottle. So, I know it's convenient to buy bottled water, but the quality of that water inside a bottle, firstly, is not regulated. So they could literally be putting anything into that, and they could call it, spring water, whatever they want. It's up to the FDA to test, but I don't think they really have the capacity to test very thoroughly. So it's better to actually, fill up your own reusable water bottle at home and use like filtered water, and fill it into a stainless steel or glass water bottle. It actually works out cheaper in the long run as well. So that's number one. I feel like, even before you switch out your plastic food containers, change your water bottles first. Yeah. And then you can move to, changing your plastic Tupperware to glass. So that's the plastic piece.
Yeah. And we don't think about, children's toys too. Like, that can be a huge
absolutely.
Exposure to plastics. I mean, when they're like teething and it's just like chewing on plastic, pieces.
Yes.
Bamboo, yes. Bamboo is a good alternative for that.
Yeah. And I feel like it's even more important for children because per pound of their weight, they're a lot more vulnerable to these environmental toxins than adults. So I would almost prioritize changing their products first. And we also know studies have shown that there are certain developmental windows during which genes can be turned on and off by these environmental toxins. So, for example, tributyltin, which is a chemical that they use to coat the outside of ship, that chemical, when animals are exposed to it at certain stages, can switch on genes that predispose to obesity, which then they carry through the rest of their life and can then even pass on to the next generation. So I feel like if you have kids, prioritize changing out their products.
Wow. That's, yeah. It's almost overwhelming when you start looking at everything from the bird's eye view, but like, that's why we're going over this, so that people can be aware and start making, small but super powerful changes. All right.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because that is absolutely right. I think that this topic, a lot of people almost don't want to tune in because it's just too overwhelming. It's heartbreaking to learn all this information. And there's always going to be a guilt piece, right? Like, oh, shoot, what have I done to my kids? Like, trust me, I know, because I've been through that. Like, there was such an intense period where I felt so much guilt, mom guilt. Like, I did this to my kids. And I think as someone who went through that, it's important to remember that you don't know what you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. So now that you know, you have to congratulate yourself for even being here and being in the space where you can now become aware and do better. I got really angry because, I trusted the regulations to protect us, right? And then when I realized that these regulations don't protect us at all, I was super disappointed and angry. And I think there's like this period of grieving almost, like where you need to come to terms with the fact that, okay, now I need to advocate for myself. And luckily, we're in this community now where we can support each other, right? You're not alone. And the most important thing, as you said, is that don't feel like you have to do this all at once, right? We've said some really scary things, and it's just like one thing after another, like food and then the water. And then it's like, well, let's break it down and let's do one thing at a time, right? Let's tackle food first. What can you do there? And then now, once you've done that, then go to your water, maybe your air. Like any step that you can take will make incremental changes in your health and bring benefit, no matter how small. So that's the key takeaway I want everybody to understand.
For sure. And, especially you coming from Europe, the regulation here in this country is like, whoa,
it's truly shocking.
Yeah.
So I, when back in the days, so I moved to the Bay Area 5 years ago, and in the UK, my kids used to eat Doritos, right? The ingredients, I mean, it's chips, right? But I'm not, I don't pretend that I'm perfect. I'm 80-20. So, So when we first moved here, I let them eat Doritos. And then one day I picked up a bag and read the ingredients. I thought, oh, what is this with the red dye and this and that? I thought, I'm sure this is not the same ingredient list as the UK. And of course, when I compared, it had like an extra 5-6 different ingredients. And I thought, why is that? So I think that's another segue of me kind of really wanting to talk about this on my platform, because it's even more of an urgent issue here in the States.
It is, for sure. It's just massively unregulated in our food and personal care and cleaning, industry. It's bad. So, okay, we've talked pesticides, we've talked plastics. Can you tell me, are there specific environmental toxins that certain body parts are targeted from? Like the brain?
That's a great question.
Heavy metals.
Yeah. So I like to think of it this way. With each environmental toxin, I like to look at all the way down to the root of what they can do, right? So they can affect our mitochondria, which is the powerhouse. It's a battery inside of our cells. And without mitochondria being in optimal health, that cell cannot produce energy. So whatever function that cell performs, be it to make hormones or to make, a brain cell, like help us think, or a muscle cell, help us run, any function it's supposed to do, it just cannot do. So actually, environmental toxicity can manifest in so many different ways for that reason. So it kind of depends on where your weakest link is in your body, like where these environmental toxins are accumulating and what part of the body is affecting. But yes, as you said, it can affect your hormones. And so we know, for example, like chlorine, fluoride can target, and mercury as well, can target our thyroid. So they can bind to and affect thyroid function. Things like BPA, phthalates, arsenic can affect our insulin, which is what controls blood sugar. So, it can lead to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes. It can also affect our sex hormones, so estrogen. So a lot of these endocrine disruptors, again, like BPA, phthalates, can mimic our own estrogen, attached to our own estrogen receptors. And that can lead to PMS, endometriosis, PCOS again, and menstrual cycle irregularities, which is actually quite common now. So hormones is one area. Gut health is another big area. We talked about that earlier. Brain is really susceptible to these environmental toxins because the brain cells are so full of mitochondria. That's one reason. But some of these toxins can actually directly damage our brain cells, like pesticides, mercury, the heavy metals, lead, mercury. So yeah, and unfortunately, the environmental toxins can affect our body in a very ubiquitous way. And it just kind of depends on your genetic predisposition and how well you detoxify as to where it can affect you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And, you kind of mentioned like them finding the weakest link, which I think is a super interesting way to look at it too. Like where is your body the weakest? That's probably where of course, these toxins are going to probably cripple. And I have thyroid issues. And, when I switched my water, I'm on a chemical medication for it. I'm not doing the natural route. I just felt so horrible. It is what it is. It's not ideal. But when I started drinking spring/distilled water, my medication was dropped by 3 times. Like amazing. They just had to keep dropping it. And wow, that's just the power of water right there. So
right. And I want to say as well, there's nothing wrong with taking medication, right? Because I feel like this is the integrative approach, is that there is a place for medication. There's no shame in needing that. And actually, it can really help. It gets you to that place where it can give you energy so that you can do all these things to help yourself. You can't be healing from a place where you're so tired and, suffering with symptoms. I feel like a lot of people push too much towards the other realm, which is like, I'm going to do all holistic. And I don't feel like that can be 100% of the solution either, right? So I feel like you're actually doing it perfect way.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that balance. I did have the mindset originally that, no, I was going to heal myself. But it's a very big picture, as we keep saying, and I needed to actually function. And in order to function and be able to talk to you and help other people, I need that medication. And that is something that I have.
And there's no shame in that.
Yeah,
at all.
It's not ideal, but it is something that I have made peace with, and it's okay. So functioning is very important. Okay, so we've talked about, let's get a little bit more into heavy metals. So I know that is something that you are super good at teaching people about. Where are they found? I know we've kind of scratched the surface there, but where are the biggest culprits, and how do we start to detoxify from them if we do have heavy metal toxicity? And for instance, a friend of mine just said, I was talking about cilantro, which I know that it's a very powerful way to, detoxify from heavy metals, but like she said, she's going to start a heavy metal detox. And I know that you have some precautionary things to do, like step by step, and like, what to make sure you're doing if you are going to be doing something like that.
Yeah. So heavy metal is it's all-encompassing group that it includes things like mercury, lead, arsenic, right? So each of these are actually naturally found in our Earth's crust, but in super low levels, not supposed to be found at concentrations we're finding it at right now. And the reason why it's got there is because we released these into our environment. So, for example, mercury comes from coal burning. So when the coal is burned, it's released into the air and it comes down as condensation, so as rain into our water. So that's why our ocean is polluted with mercury now. It can also be released through industrial processes, and mercury is even being found in things like contact lens solution as a preservative. So it's quite ubiquitous. And from a toxicity point of view, there's actually 2 different main types. I know I'm not a chemist, so I'm not including all the different types, but I'm just trying to simplify a very complex topic. But for all intents and purposes, there's the methyl mercury, which is usually found in seafood. And there's the other type, which is elemental, which is found in amalgams. So those are the two main sources where you're going to encounter mercury. And those two act in different ways in the body. And they're excreted differently as well. So when you're talking about heavy metal detox, firstly, you want to know where you got your mercury from, because the detox process is actually going to be a little bit different for everybody. And a lot of people just jump in and start pulling out toxins from the tissue, right? Because what happens when mercury gets into your bloodstream is that your body goes onto high alert and go, there's something I don't like here. Can we get rid of it? And if we can't, like if there's too much, like that's exceeded the body's detox capabilities, then it starts to hide it, right? So it just starts sending it to fatty tissues to hide it. And actually, in a way, that's the body's way to protect us from the harm that these toxicants can cause. And when you start actively pulling these toxins out from those tissues, but your detox capabilities haven't been optimized, what you're doing is that you're pulling it out, it's circulating your blood again, but it can't get out because the detox organs are blocked, or they're at full capacity. And that's what I see a lot in practice, is that people come to me and say, I took this binder and then I just got dizzy and I couldn't walk for 3 months. Or I felt so sick, I was throwing up, or I had this rash. Those are signs that you're actually not detoxing at all. You're just recirculating toxins. And that's what heavy metal is very notorious for, is this recirculation. So the first step to do is actually to make sure your detox organs are all optimized, right? So what are our detox organs? The gut, right? Poop is a main form of detox because we excrete a lot of these toxins into our poop. And the other one is liver. So actually the liver and the gut is very closely linked, and they can't work well without the other. So a lot of people, when they think detox, they start pushing the liver really hard. Well, when their gut is not functioning properly, right? So if they're not pooping and they're pushing the liver, where does the toxin that's neutralized by the liver go? It goes into the gut, right? So once the liver has broken down the toxins, it has to send it somewhere to come out. And it comes out through the gut. So it's about optimizing your gut health, making sure you're pooping at least once to twice a day. And it's not like, sorry to be graphic, but you want big sausage-shaped poops. Those are actual, like what elimination should look like, not little pellets, right? And a lot of people actually go to the bathroom and they're not completely emptying their bowels. So that's number one. And then you want to be making sure that you're hydrated so that toxins can move through your body easily and that you're excreting it through your kidneys. And I think that's where an anti-inflammatory diet, like a plant-based diet, is really important, because if you eating a lot of meat, dairy products, these actually can make your urine acidic. And when your urine is acidic, a lot of toxins recirculate back into your tissues. So you can't get rid of toxins very easily at the level of the kidney cells if your urine is acidic. And then, supporting your liver with foods like cruciferous vegetables, spices, herbs, and making sure you're sweating, right? So a lot of people can't sweat because their body is like in this state of almost, hyper toxicity, that it's like the body doesn't want to release toxins into the bloodstream in case, it causes more symptoms. So, making sure that you are exercising, sweating, or if you have a sauna, going to the sauna, if you don't have any contraindications, those can be really good ways to open up your detox pathways.
That is so interesting.
And once you're actually eliminating toxins efficiently, that's when you can then think about going in and pulling out toxins that are stored in your tissues.
Wow. Yeah, I've had a problem ever since I can remember sweating, truly. And something that I've been doing is it's not quite an infrared sauna bed, but it's called the Soki bed. And it's pretty similar, and it like makes you heat from the inside out. And like I need to get my sweat going on so that I can my body for some reason doesn't want to sweat, and I'm sure that
so a lot of people with hypothyroidism can't sweat very well, and it makes sense because the thyroid gland is in control of our metabolism and core body temperature. So a lot of people with hypothyroidism tend to have a lower core body temperature, and it takes a lot more for them to sweat. And it comes around in a roundabout way, because the more environmental toxins there are in your blood, in your body, the more the thyroid might be affected. So, when I had my toxicity issues, my thyroid was always borderline hypothyroid, not to the point where I needed medication, but it was like, oh, you're kind of getting to that point. And, after I did the overhaul, now it's been sitting at normal, and I can sweat much better now that my thyroid function's normalized. So
interesting. Wow. Okay. So let's start to wrap this up. Let's talk a little bit about genes. And so can you explain, I'm not sure if what you were talking about earlier with the TH1, TH2, if that has to do with the MTHFR gene mutation?
Not really. I mean, sometimes, it's really complicated.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But so how does having that gene mutation hinder your ability to detox from environmental toxins? I know both my husband and I got tested for that. We both have it. We have the different, we have one of each of us have, the different strains. But do you think this is a test that people should get if they're having health issues? And how does it affect the body?
That's a great question, because it's all the hype now, right? Everybody's talking about it. And I feel like doing the test without really understanding the context can sometimes trigger anxiety in people and a lot of stress, right? Because it's not, a lot of my clients come to me and think it's a death sentence, like, oh my God, I'm homozygous, like I'm doomed. Like, no, you're not, right? Because it's actually incredibly common in certain populations, like Italian, Asian. So I'm Chinese. A lot of Asians are homozygous for MTHFR. Maybe it was like an evolutionary advantage. We don't know. But if you look at the diet of those populations, you can kind of see why that genetic variation may be more common, because they eat so much more leafy greens, and that is actually how they can I don't want to say overcome, because I don't feel like it should be seen as a disadvantage. I think it's just a variation of normal, right? So this is how they can enhance and change their genetic function. So I like to think of our genes as the piano, the keys on the piano, right? And how we live our life is how we play. And you can still make beautiful music if you have like a standard piano versus like someone with a Steinway, a grand piano, right? If they play poorly, it's going to sound bad compared to someone who is playing well on a standard piano. So it's actually a lot to do with how you live. You can actually switch on and off genes, and that applies to MTHFR as well. So it all depends on how you feed that gene, right? So that is a gene that basically determines folate. And they're involved in these circles that intersect, but eventually it can affect your glutathione production. And glutathione is the master antioxidant in your body. So glutathione is the molecule that can bind to heavy metals, for example, and escort it out of the body. And it does that with so many different toxicants. So glutathione is really, really important antioxidant and helps us detoxify. And the reason why some people with MTHFR can't detoxify so well is because if they're not getting enough folate into their diet and there's nutrients missing in parts of those circles that intersect, they end up with a low glutathione level, which then means that they can't detoxify. But if you're homozygous, I think you still have 20% of gene functions, not nothing, right? It's not a death sentence, and you can be more aware of nutrients that you might need, like folate, right? And not folic acid, which is the synthetic form, which can actually cause more issues for some people, but folate from food, leafy green vegetables. Asparagus, asparagus is coming into season now. It's full of folate and can actually help boost glutathione production. So really, food is medicine. And if you're heterozygous, meaning you have one copy, you have 50-60% function. So yeah, nothing is black or white. I think if you're gonna have it done, have that mindset of like, what can I support my body with if I do have this variation?
Yeah, for sure. Optimizing what, our predispositions, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So last question on genes. I know this might be hard to choose, but what do you think is the one most powerful lifestyle factor that turns on and off bad genes, or genes that are less than desirable?
Wow. That is a very difficult question to answer, because I don't think I can pick just one. Like, okay, if I had to pick, I would actually pick your mind, your brain, your mindset, and your stress level. Because ultimately, if you think of your body as an orchestra, so the different organs are different instruments. What is dictating these instruments playing in harmony is the conductor, and the conductor is your brain, right? So if you're in this mindset of stress, sympathetic overdrive, like where you're constantly in fight or flight, trying to run away from your stressful situation, or trying, a lot of people, they live in this constant fear of what's going to happen next. Like, my body's like, what's going to happen to my body next? Like, what can I be doing to protect myself, right? They're in that survival mode. And when you're in that survival mode, firstly, a lot of detoxification genes are switched off, because your body just thinks, well, you're at life or death situation right now, so you don't need to detoxify. Don't worry about that stuff, right? So a lot of those genes, and the repair genes, longevity genes, those are switched off when you're in that mode. And so if you're trying to heal from that state of mind, and you're eating like all the superfoods, the kale, like those foods don't go as far as if you can switch your mindset into the healing mode, when you're actually telling your body, okay, now it's time to heal, right? So you switch mode into what we call rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic dominant mode, where you're relaxed and calm. And that's where things like meditation, mindfulness can come in. And it's shocking to learn. It's one of the things that I learned after working with so many clients who, hit this wall. Like, I'm doing everything, but I just can't make any improvement. Why? It's because they're still stuck in sympathetic dominant mode, and the body is not using all the nutrients that you're providing to heal. So that's what I think I would say would be the number one thing.
Wow, that is super powerful. And I love that answer, because that affects everything else. If you're going to try to make other lifestyle changes, and you're still in this stressed, freaking out mode, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. Okay. So Dr. Vivian Chen, please help our listeners understand where we can stay connected with you and where they can learn from you and continue down this path of optimal living.
Thank you so much. So I have my Instagram page. My handle is at plateful.health. So that's plateful.health, HEALTH. My website is www.platefulhealth.com. And join my newsletter. I put out education-based newsletter every couple of weeks. And I also put out a lot of information through my Instagram for free. And if you want to take a deep dive into detoxification and how to reduce your everyday exposure, I actually have a course that kind of takes the overwhelm out of a very overwhelming topic. And, I'd save you time by taking you through the key steps and, how to reduce your everyday toxin exposure, and also how to support your body in detoxification as well.
Everybody needs to take your course, and everybody needs to get onto your Instagram handle because it is so full of information. And what you do much. Is just so, it's very empowering for the consumer. And I really appreciate what you do. It matters so much and is so helpful. So
Dr. Thank Vivian, you so much, Stacey. Well, right back at you. I'm so encouraged when I see people like you taking the realm and, showing people how to improve their lives. So thank you so much for all your work as well.
Oh, thank you. All right. Before we end this conversation, which was amazing, I have to ask you what I ask every one of my guests, and it is, what does living a holistic life mean to you?
It means more energy and living life to the full and being happy.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much, my friend. Take care, and we will
take care of yourself too. Yeah, thank you.
I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. There's truly no better time than now to level up your life. And I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.